Hey everyone, welcome to the EC. I'm so excited that everyone is here on this Friday. Today will be another great rocket pitch. We have two great pitches coming up today, and I want to thank everyone for coming out. Rocket Pitch is one of the many events that we offer here at the EC, and it's part of our mission to help students learn and apply their entrepreneurial thinking. One of the most important aspects of Rocket Pitch is you. So as the audience, you all have the opportunity to play a part today, whether that's cheering on pitchers, providing feedback, this week out loud or in the chat box, voting or turning on your camera and just being a happy face in the screen. So if you're new today, I want to welcome you because if it's your first time watching, it's a great experience and we love seeing new faces. That's what we're all about at the EC. So if you're not a member, don't worry. Sign up is really easy. We will drop a form in the chat right now that you can fill out, and it'll take a few seconds and then you'll become a member and join the little family we have going on here. So before we get started, I want to make sure that you're eligible to vote. We'll review how it works and then we'll do a quick thanks to our wonderful sponsors. So on the topic of voting, you're only eligible to vote if you're a member or a coach. So just make sure you fill out that member form first. It's really quick, really easy. And then we'll drop a voting form in the chat, which is what you can fill out to do the voting. All you have to do is fill that out before the feedback portion if you want to vote, and your vote will be counted, which is really exciting. So we all have that opportunity to participate today. So now that you can vote, let's review how Rocket Pitch works. So participants have 2 minutes to pitch their idea on the following 4 pillars. So these pillars are the 4 aspects of a good rocket pitch. First off, we have the problem. So all great products solve problems, and so it's important to address that. Then it's important to go into the market, keep in mind the outreach, how many people are involved, who is affected, and then going into those current solutions. So evaluate the competition around you and why your solution is better. So going into your solution, which is the 4th pillar, telling us your idea. So what you've done so far, what's to come. And keep in mind, this is a competition. So if you do go over those 2 minutes, I will mute you. But other than that, it's really your opportunity and anything goes. Just really share what you have, but make sure to keep those 4 aspects in mind. So additionally, there will also be a prize at the end for the winner, which is pretty cool. But what I love about Rocket Pitch is how it's really all about the entrepreneurship. This all goes beyond that $100. Even if you're just an audience member today, take this opportunity to develop new ideas and learn from others. Speaking of learning from others, we have some awesome people here with us today. Ultimately, this can only happen with great people, our sponsors and our coaches. So I'm just going to give a quick shout out. Our coaches today are Mike Deschner, Michelle King, Jeff Rich, Chris McCoy, Graham Henshaw, and we have a mentor here today, Tim Murray, and then faculty champions, Matt Aller and Karen Connor. So thank you all for being here today. And I also want to thank Ferguson for making this all possible. We really would not be able to do this without them. So thanks for all of that. All right, I think we're ready to get started. So let's get ready to rock it. First up, we have Ian Conrad. He's a philosophy major. He's a sophomore, and he will be talking about geode. So Ian, whenever you're ready, you may begin. I can start your timer.
Okay. One of the most fundamental parts of human behavior is the drive to decorate. Humans hate monotony, to the extent that I bet that if you look at your desk right now, almost all of you will have some kind of decorations around you. And some of the most beautiful decorations are rare minerals from this earth we call home. For instance, lapis lazuli, chrysoprase, cinnabar, opalite, tourmaline, and of course, amethyst inside of a geode. There are thousands of rare mineral collectors across the US, and millions more people who don't have access to these minerals, but might be interested in them. Minerals are beautiful, durable, and have a calming effect so powerful that some people think they even have healing powers. In the past, collecting rare minerals has been difficult. You've been forced to either go on arduous expeditions of your own to collect them from the field or purchase them from resellers who often charge exorbitant prices. There's a better way of doing things, and it's called Geode. Geode is a subscription-based loot box aimed at bringing minerals to the masses. By utilizing economies of scale and leveraging social media, we can deliver packages containing 3 to 5 random minerals per month to customers. Paired with an aggressive social media campaign, we can show the world the beauty of minerals. Whether dedicated enthusiasts or curious admirers, Geode is a service for everyone. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Ian, for your pitch today. We're going to move right on into the next one. So the next one we have today is coming from Jamaica Jones. She's a business major. She's a sophomore, and she will be telling us about Happy Store. Or the Happy Store. So Jamaica, whenever you're ready, let me know and I will start your timer.
Before we begin, I'd just like to thank you everyone for being here. This is an idea that's really special to me, and I'm just excited to present. Okay, I'm ready. All right, so the Happy Store is a store that sells products of wellness, good fortune, and good nature to its customers. Products that scientifically make people feel happier and more productive in their everyday lives. So I envision a few things you can envision in the Happy Store are products like planners, positive affirmation notes, books based on joy and peace, comedy CDs, books about creating new hobbies, instruments, things like that, things that make people feel happier or more productive in their everyday lives. I envision the Happy Store as more of a storefront, although we could start online. I envision it of a storefront kind of similar to Bed Bath & Beyond, but what differentiates the Happy Store from Bed Bath & Beyond, is that focus on wellness and happiness within our customers. So where Bed Bath & Beyond focuses mainly on organization and products of creating a more organized space for customers, the Happy Store is focusing more on that aspect of joy and providing products of wellness and betterment to its customers. And so we will be focusing on that market of teens to adults up to age 40, and combining that market of productivity, and self-betterment. And this will really be looking into that issue of a lot of people facing now, especially within the pandemic, of a lot of people are complaining about every day feeling, monotonous and, going through the motions. And I think a lot of that has to do with people not having, certain hobbies and just wanting something new in their lives. And I think that would really fill that void of, learning more information. Either maybe that may be learning a new instrument, getting into something more spiritual, learning new languages, or just a new hobby. So the Happy Store, you can really buy happiness here. So. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jamaica. We have a little surprise. We have a third pitch coming. I know I didn't mention that before, but we will have 3 pitches today, which is awesome. So before we go into that, I just want to remind everyone about the voting form that we have. Make sure to just keep filling that out as you go. It'll be really easy to just get it done that way. So just a little reminder on that. But yeah, next pitch, we have Taylor Robertson. He's a finance major, a sophomore, and he will be speaking to us about Packed Up. So Taylor, whenever you're ready, let me know and I can start your timer.
All right, thank you for having me here today. I'm ready to go. When we're transitioning to college, life gets packed up for us. Our housing, our social life, what we eat, our healthcare services, and we end up paying that college to dip its hand into almost all aspects of our life. When we transition to our first job, graduating from college, we're thrown to the wolves. We have to figure out adulting. More than 1/4 of graduates from Ivy League schools move to New York City after graduation. These alike graduates and graduates from other great colleges are dispersing themselves all over the city, disconnected from their previous network and working heavy hours as an analyst, med student, or another entry-level job. My idea is for a real estate marketing firm and concierge service, Packed Up, that targets and recruits matriculating college students from elite colleges, intending to place them clustered geographically within a few blocks when they move to New York City, to an affordable but accessible neighborhood like Williamsburg, Brooklyn, or Long Island City, Queens. So we're the renter's agent. But not only that, we become a concierge service for them once they arrive. We provide them a meal plan, just like college. Some meals prepared by a private chef, which is cost effective when a shared service. We affiliate with restaurants within these few blocks where residents affiliated with us can eat and have it be charged to a tab. We'll handle their takeout orders too. We'll offer services not only as simple as booking reservations for them, but booking their dog walking services, weekly housekeeping. Before they even move to the city, we'll find appointments for them with a new physician, chiropractor, hairstylist, nail tech, dry cleaner, dentist, and more. We're packing up an easy transition to adult life, one where all the hard parts besides your job are taken care of by us, packed up, all for an annual fee. We provide networking opportunities with other graduates of elite colleges, invaluable, that are close to you and a part of the network that we've set up, an amazing network for you to easily make your network, instead of only knowing one friend from high school, a 40-minute subway ride away in the city. We're packing social life, food, all essential services, and housing. It's like college, for those not quite ready yet to leave the comfort of the cradle. Thank you.
Thank you, Taylor, for that pitch. So I just want to quickly explain a few things. So we are going to be doing feedback a little bit different this week. We're going to try something out. So we're going to be eliminating breakout rooms for today. But before we do so, I just want to take a quick breather, just a few minutes. I'm going to put up the holding screen, take a few minutes to complete those voting forms. Think of any feedback, questions or comments you may have. And we're going to be accepting feedback from not only the coaches and mentors, but also the audience today. If you want to type anything in the chat, you can direct message me that as well. I'll go over all of this again after we come back. So let's take that quick breather and I'll talk to you guys in a few minutes. All right. I think we are ready to transition into the feedback now, which I'm really excited for. So I'm going to explain a little bit more in depth really quickly on how we're going to be doing this today. So this week, I want to invite everyone to give feedback to our wonderful pitches. So first, we'll ask for some feedback from the coaches, and they can do this aloud, how they normally do. But we're going to go by each pillar instead of by each pitch. And while the coaches are speaking, I encourage audience members, you can direct message me in the chat any comments or questions you have pertaining to those 4 pillars, and I will ask those aloud for you. So if you're an audience member today and you have a question, a comment, or a concern, anything you want to bring up in this feedback portion, send that over to me and I'll make sure to get that out to the group. So first off, we will be discussing all the pitches at once instead of separately. So you can give feedback to any of the 3 pitches at this time, but first we will be only talking about the problem. So any questions, comments pertaining to the problem of these 3 pitches, we're open to hearing now. So if coaches would like to start or mentors would like to start, feel free to unmute yourself, say any comments or questions you may have about the problem.
Yes, this is Tim Murray. So my comments on the problem for Ian's, that one wasn't as clear as I would have liked. I mean, it's an interesting idea on the minerals and stuff, but I didn't quite get the problem. The Happy Store, more so. I think the problem there was pretty well articulated, but I wasn't quite sure on how, in terms of the model, would work. And then Tyler, actually, I like Tyler's of the 3. I thought in terms of the problem, I thought his was very good, and he was quite animated in the way that he explained it.
This is Jeff. Yeah, I thought all 3, did a good job. I think that the geode idea, in terms of identifying the problem, there might be the most natural audience to identify there of enthusiasts and, collecting geodes. So there's definitely a better opportunity to articulate what exists in terms of a gap of people that are enthusiasts for collecting those types of mineral rocks. So a much stronger pitch on the front end of identifying that, it's a niche hobby or collector's opportunity could turn that entire equation around and make it a bit of a deficiency in terms of not emphasizing enough to coming out really, really strong in terms of something that has an existing target market of enthusiasts that you could really tap into. And then the Happy Store definitely did a good job articulating the problem. probably it's probably a bigger problem than people realize. So as you talk about framing the problem, you'd want to combat a natural sort of resistance that might get raised in terms of it being crowded market space. So as you think about how to better articulate that problem, combat, the natural thought that people are going to have that, well, it's already crowded space, and can you enter that space with a new offering? And then the clustering of students, I think there's also a problem there that's going to need better identified. And as you think about how to quantify and frame that for people, the counter there you want to diffuse is probably the realization that students generally don't have a lot of discretionary money. So how are you going to make it a financially viable proposition and quantifying the problem and identifying, that there is a relevant reason for people with probably not a lot of extra money at that stage in their life, starting their careers, to invest or to solve that problem. So focus on not just quantifying what the problem is, but how this really addresses solving that and how it can be funded. So just some thoughts I had.
Yeah, and I just want to jump in there as well with Taylor and your comment, Jeff, about how are they going to be able to afford it. So you can even offer it as something as businesses. So they're hired in a new location. Businesses can offer it as part of their benefit package. So that can be, hey, so not only just the customer, but then you can get businesses involved too, to go ahead and subscribe to your product. Yeah, and then with the Happy Store, thank you for pitching that. I think it's timely for that. But when you talk about the problem, I really like the tagline you had at the end about money. Not money can't buy happiness, but you can buy happiness, and bring it in that way and state the problem into that. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you as well for that feedback on the, making sure it's affordable. And that's why in the pitch I specified, want to be an affordable but accessible neighborhood, not Manhattan. It would be, Long Island, Queens, or like Williamsburg, Brooklyn, where they're more up and coming neighborhoods, sadly being gentrified, but, they're more affordable. That's where they'd likely be dispersing to anyway, but they might be dispersing, anywhere in Brooklyn, instead of telling them, I'm going to be your renter's agent and putting you all within these same few blocks where there's affordable housing.
You also, it makes me think of sort of a cottage business that grew up during the pandemic, where some smart student entrepreneurs created a little ecosystem in, like, the Jamaica or vacation destinations, essentially. So adding that dimension to it, that it's creating that ecosystem where students can interact with one another, even if they go to different institutions or doing different things, different jobs, that, there's an angle there that presents it as a good transition from student life into a professional life, with a step in between that lets students, especially in a big market in a city like New York that's intimidating for a lot of people, step into that world in a much, much more friendly, less sort of stressful way.
I'm just going to jump in here. I received a question in the chat about the Happy Store. So the question is, why limit the market to under the age of 40? I'm over 40 and I want to be happy too.
That is a good comment. I'm sorry. Yeah, I was just more so thinking of the market within stores like that may have a similar kind of trajectory within the Happy Store. I was thinking just kind of selling it to more teens, and I was trying to kind of slim it down the market. But yeah, I would definitely look into opening that market up. I just wanted to have that kind of specific market. But yeah, I think that everyone should be happy as well. And everyone should be, allowed in, the Happy Store and afford to be happy.
So I just want to quickly remind everyone, if you have not voted yet, make sure to do that. We will be closing the voting form at 2:35. So try to get it in before that time so your vote is counted. So if we are done discussing the problem, I think we are ready to move on to the next pillar, which is the market. So now we will take any feedback about questions or comments relating to the market of any of the three pitches.
Yeah, my comments on the market. I think in all three, I didn't quite understand the market size or what it is. I thought Tyler did the best job kind of articulating, in my view. Ian, I wasn't sure, again, what size of the market. Tyler's, I could kind of visualize it a little bit, although he didn't really specify it. And then the Happy Store in Jamaica, that was, again, it's a good idea, but that's a really broad one. So in terms of the market, I wasn't quite sure on all three.
This is Jeff. Of the three ideas, I mean, they all have a market for sure. But of the three, the easiest market to identify, I think, is the geode market, because it is an enthusiast market and there's ways to get at that target audience. So that again can be another strength in your pitch, is doing a little bit of research up front to identify collectors societies, places that you can buy lists of collectors or publications that you might want to run advertising in. That's a great way to quantify a market that does exist, and a problem that probably exists in terms of entry-level enthusiasts for sure wanting to build their collection in a more cost feasible way. The Happy Store is, I think Tim called it out. That's a very broad market. So you've got to figure out a niche within it, and it's, is it an online offering? Is it on ground? So maybe talk about, is it going to be a geographically based storefront? Or are you going to try and market it virtually, and then take some additional steps to identify how you would identify through target marketing an audience that you could begin to position the offering for, and overcome that hurdle early in the game. And I think the student clustering one is another example of a market that probably exists. So tons of ways to identify the market there. Maybe, develop some channel strategies that you could work into your pitch. By channel strategies, I mean ways that you could market it to other businesses versus consumers. So working relationships with other universities to get it into their career offices, or some, advising group that can talk to students that might be planning to move to that market in New York when they graduate, and make this an offering that gets in front of them. So just think about those things for all three of the pitches. How do you identify and demonstrate to potential investors that you can get at this target audience in a systematic way and in a repetitive way, reach them through something other than what's known as general media, that is, putting up billboards and broad things that are way too expensive often for startups. You want to get at target marketing strategies that can isolate audiences and get a targeted message in front of them.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rich. That was definitely great advice. I thought that the market is definitely, you want to target those college students, through career services, through email surveys, trying to get the data of who's going to New York City. But I also think that, that's not the only market for my pitch. My market is also those restaurants that you're going to be trying partnering with, because the restaurant's going to want you to pick it instead of the one that's 2 doors down and the one to the left of it. In terms of who you're going to be drawing those, your residents to go and eat there. And I also think, if you're booking with a healthcare service providers, like, a primary care physician or a chiropractor or a dentist or something like that, those healthcare networks, if you're going to be bringing them hundreds of patients, they're going to be wanting you to pick their healthcare network over another healthcare network. So you're going to be able to get a referral fee there as well. So I think there's multiple different markets where, I'd be able to make a profit, not just off the consumer, my resident, but also off of the service providers that I'm providing to them.
You just nailed it. Just work that into your pitch and overcome those obstacles in your presentation, so that they don't become things that people sort of dwell on and miss maybe the broader message. So try and overcome as many of those hurdles in your elevator pitch as you can, so that you can get to things that aren't sort of things that you've already figured out how to solve and just didn't bring it out in your presentation.
And as far as like slimming down the market for the Happy Store, I did have that, I did assume that it would be online first, and then we can from that get that specific market. But as far as like the target marketing to specific consumers, I did have that. That's why I kind of assumed that it would be teens to young adults, because I kind of had, I thought that it would be best to slim it down towards, youth that are looking towards, creating memories rather than, because the youth are more so focused on, things that focus on making them happy, rather than, getting a job that their parents would be, just more so focused on creating happiness. So that would be my more so focused target initially, just youth that are, and also I mentioned the spirituality aspect, just because we would want to service that as well. So I think that that would be our target is, more so youth that are focused on that spirituality and self-betterment and self-wellness. So that would be our initial target market. But as far as that, I would also look at who would be on our online stores as well.
That's a great response, Jamaica. And I would add to that, maybe think about drilling down deeper into real product examples or service examples. So it's not broad in terms of happiness as a storefront concept. But if you can give specific examples of the types of products or services that you can offer, then that'll lead you to a discussion about how you would identify those target markets and put that product or offering in front of them. And it could add a whole nother dimension to your pitch.
Yeah, I want to add on to that there too. I was just thinking, I was going to ask you, what makes you happy? I mean,
what makes me happy? Honestly, business, and being able to speak about. So this is pretty much, but also just things that make me invest in myself. So I mentioned that one of our products could be positive affirmation notes. So things like that make me look inward towards myself and things like that. And finding new hobbies also. But we can also I would also look into research to find out, within that market who other things that would people would consider buying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Jeff brings up a great point, figuring that out. Look at the demographics, this age group, because everybody wants to be happy. So that, what particular age group, what are some actual products that you would sell that would be with that target audience?
I was just going to say, if I could, so looking at the pitches, I thought that all three of them were good, but I think there was not a strong hook where it really got my attention. And so a little bit with the problems, we were able to do that. But I think a market size is often a place, I'm a CPA, so I'm a real numbers heavy person. So it's a place where I think you can hook people who are mostly concerned about like the financial viability. So thinking of the geode, I think Jeff's point of, collector societies and access, but let's say how many people subscribe to that, that magazine, how many people are involved, how many of these kinds of things get sold every year? What's the prices of some of these? If I could sell this box for $1,000, versus it's only going to sell it for like 50. So a little bit of that kind of idea. And in the Happy Store, I think it's a similar thing. The amount of money that's spent on health and wellness in this country is enormous. And so if you're really showing that you're able to provide maybe even an alternative to, psychiatric drugs, or you're able to look at some part of the market where you can say, hey, this is a place that people are spending an awful lot of money trying to be happy and well, and quantify that. And I think the same way, Taylor, I think you had a really good point to have the percentage of Ivy League students who go off into New York City as a percent, but how many students is that? Is that 100? Is that 1,000? Is that 1,000,000? I don't know. And so you also mentioned some of the professions that they might work in, having a sort of median income kind of thing. So you could say, well, we're looking at having this many students with this kind of income. That's a huge impact in, this market. And so I think, I think you all touched on these points, talking about the specific people involved, but I think it wouldn't hurt you to have some kind of a hook. And in my world, the hook is usually some kind of a number. And I don't think it has to be a dramatic number. I don't think it has to be something you talk about for like 10 minutes, but certainly it would help, I think, to get it in some people's brains.
I'm just gonna read another comment that I received. So this one goes out to Taylor. He says, I want to caution Taylor about selling this as a service for those, quote, not ready to leave the comfort of the cradle. It is important not to offend the sense of adulthood and autonomy these young adults have or create a stigma here.
It was a joke.
All right, so we're going to transition into feedback focused on current solutions. I know a lot of the feedback has been kind of touching on a lot of points, but here's really the moment if you have anything to say about the current solutions and any feedback on that, go ahead.
I could jump in if that's all right. So you're talking about the competition. Is that the pillar we're working on? Okay, so thinking about Ian's point, I actually thought that your problem and your competition kind of tied together to some extent. If you're interested in being a collector or having these things, or even like having the aesthetics improved in your house, then you can either go get it yourself or pay a really expensive service. So I think you did a good job articulating that. And I saw, to me, when people were talking about not really seeing the problem, to me, that was the problem. You have these enthusiasts and it's a expensive way or difficult way to go get it. So I thought those two were linked together. And I felt like you'd done a good job bridging those. In the Happy Store, Jamaica, I would be really careful about Bed Bath & Beyond. It's not the healthiest company in the world. So it's one of those to look at a competitor that's not doing so well. I mean, I get what you're getting at, but I think just be cautious in the competitor examples. And I kind of go back to saying it's a little more niche than Bed Bath & Beyond, but I like the idea of saying, well, they do stuff kind of like this. And so I like that idea. But I mean, there certainly are other, outside of retail, there are other people, or even different kinds of retail, different people trying to push on this. That's where I was kind of getting at with the health and wellness piece. Taylor, I was less aware of a direct competitor for what you were doing. So I don't know if there really is anybody out there doing this kind of thing, or what you, and I don't think I got a strong sense of what that competition was. Other than just sort of looking at classifieds and doing it yourself kind of stuff. But
yeah, that's certainly what it is. Like you might have an agent who wants to, get you an apartment because they want that fee from you, or your business might have some sort of like the business that you're going to join as a young professional might have some sort of program, or connections of where they want you to, look for housing and things like that, but that's not offered everywhere. And, an individual agent is nothing like, a group that's specifically placing you with other people like you and then offering you services after that. So I don't believe there's anything currently in the market, even similar to this.
Taylor, is one of the plans to, or the value props, I should say, not just, a relocation service or a realtor, helps you find a place to live, but the fact that you're matching up potential roommates and cost sharing of things, that would seem to be a potential value prop and point of difference that you could draw out for those that want that, especially given in a city like New York, how expensive it is to live there. That could draw a lot of attention. But you've got different competitors in different niches too with this. So I think finding your niche and then identifying, who are the real competitors in that space, and then positioning against them is important. And then on the Happy Store side, Jamaica, I think again, it comes back to sort of going from this to this to sort of narrow down what is the market that you're trying to reach, and then who are the competitors that live in that space today, and being careful about not crossing into too many zones of retail where it's such a big, industry and niche now, that your challenge is to create more of a finite view of what the market that you're trying to enter is, so that it doesn't appear like you're competing with, Walmart on one hand, and then, an herbal remedy store on the other, that might be a small niche business versus, the biggest retailer in the world. So you can put all that to bed by sort of isolating a more precise niche that you're trying to enter.
Yeah, thank you for those points. I think that was mainly my concern as well. It's just I didn't want to make it seem like there were, several markets, because we could be getting into several markets, and I didn't want to make that a huge competitor, and I think that would be a problem. And I think that it could be solved within getting it out there and having it online, and then we can kind of isolate to a certain market and figure out our exact competition from there. But I wanted to start off within kind of a familiar, with Bed Bath & Beyond. It's something, you can kind of visualize, and it's something familiar. So I wanted to start off there. But as far as isolating it, we would look into that once we have that specific market.
Yeah, thank you so much for your advice for me as well. I think that the cost sharing is the most important aspect of the services and food end of this idea I have, is that, the bigger you have scale, the more that you're able to reduce these costs because they're shared. Like if you have, 500 residents who are sharing dog walking services because, I don't know, 70 of them have dogs, you're able to very much so reach out to a dog walker and say, hey, walk all these dogs. I'm giving you a large portion of your income instead of you having to search out and find 70 different consumers. I'm giving you 70. So then, once it gets to, thousands of residents, you have the ability to really offer your, residents, really cheap goods and services, like the private chef fee being split up. If they want a good lunch to take to work every day, when you're making one private chef meal, it's $30, $40, $50 a plate to get that made. When you're sharing it amongst 30 people, it might be $8, $7 a plate. And when you're sharing it amongst 500, it might only be $3, $4 a plate to have a really gourmet meal.
We have a question sent in for Packed Up. So it says, great idea. Seems to be a lot of services you wish to offer. Are you concerned about spreading yourself too thin, especially in the beginning?
Yeah, I think so. So the main thing with the beginning is I think you'd want to limit the amount of residents that you're having. So you'd probably want to do a couple hundred max. You'd want to, focus on 3 or 4 or 5 elite schools and bringing those students. So you're marketing specifically to those schools, bringing them in, clustering them as close together as possible. So you're probably only working then with, 6 to 7 to 8 restaurants in that immediate neighborhood. You're not trying to, get too many contacts, too many neighborhoods, too many businesses all at once. You're probably only going to be working, with a few doctors or service providers like hairstylists and things like that. Once you scale up though, you're going to have a lot more, service providers that you're establishing relationships with. So the beginning is just making sure that you're providing the most essential and wanted services, and you're not trying to go too far with them, but that the residents see the potential for, next year, once, 700 residents are added in year 2 of this program, the amount of services are going to be, tripled or quadrupled in terms of options that they have. But yeah, I think it's very important to remember, year 1, you've got to keep things, what's important to the networking capabilities of these people and the services they truly want moving into the city.
All right, we are going to formally move into the last pillar, which is your solution. So this is last call for any other questions or feedback you may have for the pitchers. So go ahead.
I can throw it in if we want something on solution. And I had 1 or 2 style points too, if I could. So Ian, I think this is the second pitch I've seen from you, and you do a fantastic job with the presentation, but I can never see your face. And I think it's because there's usually really bright light behind you. So I know you've been in different spots, but see if you can't flip it around so we can get some light on your face so we can see you a little better. And I thought your solution was really well laid out. I think it was very helpful to give that description of what the person was getting. And I feel like you had a really good balance between the different pillars. So I didn't feel like one pillar took over the other. So I thought that was good. So in that vein, Jamaica, I was thinking that it was very solution focused. There was a lot of detail about the solution. And I think that thinking about these pillars, I think you've got to give kind of even space to all 4. And so, I mean, you talked, I think, a fair amount about the competition and a fair amount about the solution, a little more solution than competition. But I think that certainly, look at kind of balancing out those 4 pillars a little, and because there was a lot of detail in the solution. And I think, especially in a 2-minute pitch, you don't want to overwhelm people with, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, because then no one can really remember what you're trying to do. It becomes less and less clear the more detail you give in an early on pitch. And then Taylor, I thought you had, so I think the second pitch I've seen from you as well, the solution sounded very well fleshed out. I think you did a good job, putting all those pillars together. I do think you have a tendency to talk a little bit on the fast side. I do too. But certainly as you go through the most important points, you want to make sure, I think those are not hit quite so hard and so rapid, because it was easy kind of to get a little lost in those, and especially in those most important points, that early hook to get people listening at the beginning. But otherwise, I think you all did a fantastic job. Always glad to see how these develop over the weeks. So thank you all.
Thank you for that advice. I appreciate it.
And some more feedback on that as well. With I want to thank each of you for being brave and courageous enough to step up and to pitch your ideas and to receive that feedback, and then to work on that and come back again. And so some of those things that you want to keep in mind, just already pointed out with Taylor, is you want to have, we call dynamism. You want to have that variation in your rate, for sure, but you don't want it always fast. Or Ian, for yours, I felt it was slow the entire time. So you want to have that variation, and because if you're engaging, the audience will be engaged. So you want to make sure that you think about that with not only the content and organization, but your delivery. It's how you say it as well. That's very important. Thank you.
Okay, thanks everyone for that wonderful feedback today. That was a really great section, and I'm really happy to see everyone contributing in their own way. So I know you're all probably really anxious to hear the results of the competition, but before we do so, I just want to mention a few things that are happening at the EC. So first off, we have the podcast that gets released on Tuesdays, so look out for that. We also have the Alumni Founder Series, which is super cool. That's every other Thursday at 5:30. And of course, Rocket Pitch every Friday at 2 p.m. Thank you all for coming here today, and I hope to see you guys again. And just a quick mention, we had a great time last night with our head of house meetings. It was a really great way to get acclimated to our Discord, and I encourage all of you to check it out if you haven't already. It's really cool, really fun, and look out for more events pertaining to the game and the house coming up soon. Also, look out for info on our special event coming up on March 12th. So it will be on a Friday at 2 o'clock, but in addition to Rocket Pitch, we'll be having some special guests from the food industry coming in. It's going to be really exciting with a little food oriented theme. So yeah, now I guess we can go into the results. So now what you've all been waiting for, the winner of Rocket Pitch today is Taylor. Congratulations, Taylor. Everyone give a round of applause. And Taylor, make sure you stick around at the end so we can chat with you for a little bit. But if you enjoyed today and you have an idea, Rocket Pitch is the perfect opportunity to share it and get great feedback. So thank you everyone for joining us today, and I'll see you all next week to launch into some more brilliant ideas. Have a great weekend.